Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. For today's video, I want to take my biggest takeaways from Walter Isaacson's Twitter space recently on June 13th, and I want to give you my thoughts and some of the color that I've taken away from Walter's comments about Elon Musk and how he approaches businesses. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, if you're not familiar with who Walter Isaacson is, he's an author. He's been around for close to 40 years publishing books. He's a journalist by trade. One of his most recent books, that's really bolster his popularity is the Steve Jobs biography, which sold a ton of copies. If you haven't read this book yet, I highly recommend it. I remember listening to it on a plane sometime while I was listening to it on audiobook. Phenomenal book. And then he's coming out with an Elon Musk book on September 12th. He's not sponsoring this video or nothing. I just have read his books in the past, and he does a phenomenal job. So I want to make sure you guys are aware of this. And in this video, I want to take yesterday's Twitter space and break down some of my thoughts on what Walter said about Elon Musk and his approach around working, building businesses, and why he's so freaking successful. Given my time at Tesla for over 4 years, I think I've picked up a few things that I think are very interesting, and I want to bring those forward to you in this video. So the first thing I want to cover is Walter speaking about context switching as it relates to Elon. I'll make sure to have that linked in the comment section below. So let's go ahead and listen to what Walter had to say about Elon's context switching.
I got a question, Walter. Did you stay up all night with him during all these sessions and such?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, especially at Starbase, where we were in the Airstream trailers, and in Austin, and throughout the night. He has meetings at 9, 10, 11, midnight, and he's allowed me to be in all of his meetings either virtually or just by his side for the past 2 years.
Because I'm super curious about his work ethic and his ability to accomplish so much. Because I run one company and I'm exhausted. So I don't know how he does this.
Well, read the book. It takes me 600 pages to explain. But I tell you, it is epic the way he does that. He, he's not superhuman. He's just plain superhuman. He does sleep late. He does run late at meetings at times. But I guess one of the most amazing things he does is he can sequentially focus. I remember the night that he actually ended up getting Twitter. In other words, the board agreed he was going to get Twitter. The deal was accepted. And he went to Brownsville in order to do a Raptor engine redesign meeting late at night, and then stayed up with Kimball at a honky-tonk on the road from Brownsville to Boca Chica, and then focused on the battery production issues, some of them, and whether they should all be moved to Austin, and the Monterey plant, whether the next generation Tesla should be built in Mexico. It was all in one night. And one of the difficulties of writing a book is you don't want to hop around and say, okay, we're going to switch from paragraph to paragraph, from Tesla to Twitter to SpaceX. But that's what his mind does. He drills down deep and then switches focus.
Absolutely fascinating commentary by Walter. Imagine just doing one of those things in one day or your entire life. Problem solver, regardless of context, adaptable skill was my big takeaway from that comment from Walter. Elon Musk has an ability to essentially drill down on one issue or one problem, on one thing that needs to be paid attention to, regardless of the context. And then once that's complete or is ready for the next step, he'll be able to switch to a different context, but it's still some sort of problem solving. And that was one of the things that I noticed while I was working at Tesla, is that it seems like it attracts that sort of talent where there are people that can problem solve regardless of context. And now I'm not surprised to hear that the leader is extremely good at that. And really, that's why he's able to have so many companies. Incredibly hard to do. I think if you or I sit down and try to context switch, by the second or third time we switch what we're thinking about, we're burned out. It seems like Elon Musk has the ability to go real deep and real far before he's burnt out, or he's just always burnt out and he's learned how to live burnt out. So Elon, if you're watching this, I would love to ask you that question. I really want to know how you do that, man. And I really think this highlights Elon Musk's first principle approach that he's always preaching, he's always talking about, essentially not reasoning from analogy, but reasoning from core truths about what you're facing. And I don't think you're able to do this unless you're taking a first principles approach. Otherwise, you're just taking all kinds of false knowledge from your different companies and applying it to the different areas, and it could be a problem. So just fascinating commentary from Walter. Let me play the next clip, Everything in-house. So here's Walter talking about Elon Musk and his decisions around bringing everything in-house.
You talk about the biggest difference. Steve Jobs spent every day, I'd walk with him through Johnny Ive's, secure design studio in that ground floor room in Cupertino. And he would fondle the design of everything, make sure the chamfers on the iPhone were curved the way he wanted. But then he'd just throw it over the wall for somebody else in China to manufacture. The brilliance of Elon Musk is he knows you cannot outsource the manufacturing. That in order to have an end-to-end control of the product, you've got to build the factories. And if you build the factories and you put the designer's desk right next to the assembly lines, you will be able to innovate every hour as you see how the manufacturing works. And one of the bad things about America in the past 30 years has been that we've outsourced manufacturing, so we don't have a fingertip feel for the innovation the way Elon Musk does.
Another fascinating comment by Walter that really highlights Elon Musk's obsession around vertical integration or bringing those things in-house. This allows Tesla and his other companies to maximize innovation and speed of change. And so if you're thinking about Tesla, why they're doing so well, or SpaceX, why they're moving so fast, that vertical integration, initially, I think a lot of us maybe are thinking about it from a cost perspective. It's going to help reduce costs, is going to help move a little bit faster. But I think Walter is really highlighting just how big of a deal this is from a strategic perspective to stay ahead of the competition. Making that move to bring everything in-house so that you control the end-to-end process is not just a cost thing, is a, hey, I want to make sure I'm ahead of everyone else thing, and maybe accelerate how quickly you can innovate and move on the products or services that you're offering. Vertical integration isn't just a cost lever, it's a strategic lever. And I think that sort of really finally went off in my head as a light bulb. I was like, okay, got it. So it's multifaceted. It's not just one thing. There's multiple things that go into those decisions. It's not just bring it in just for the hell of it and bring it in because no one is doing, or bring it in because it's cheaper. Those are valid. But the strategic side of it too is also huge, especially if the rest of the world has been moving towards letting China or someone else do the manufacturing for you. It will give you a huge competitive advantage, which bodes really well for, say, a company like Tesla versus its competition, where everyone else has outsourced everything. Tesla is able to control everything. And so how quickly they move forward, and how Elon Musk talks about Tesla's core competency is manufacturing in the long term, I think this directly speaks to those statements from Elon Musk. And another really amazing insight from Walter Isaacson. If you're enjoying this video so far, I would love it if you throw me a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show this to more people. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and listen to the next clip from Walter. This is around the topic of embracing risk and how Elon Musk views taking on risks. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Oh, 100%. It's one of the themes in the book from the very 100% right, which is, as Peter Thiel says in the book, this is most entrepreneurs try to minimize risk. Some of us try to calculate risk. Elon tries to embrace risk. And that's what makes him different. It's why Boeing got a contract to send people into orbit the same time SpaceX did, but Boeing hasn't even gotten a test flight up, and there have been 30 or so orbital launches of the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. Elon's willingness and almost addictiveness towards risk begins as a small kid, partly from his father being a very psychologically damaging part of his life, to growing up in the violence of South Africa. He just learned that America has become far too risk averse, that we have more regulators and referees than we have doers, and that he's going to take risks that others won't take. And that included most recently shooting off Starship when he knew it probably wouldn't make it into orbit, but let's shoot it up. We got 10 others on the assembly line ready to go next, and let's learn things. It's why we don't build high-speed rail or do a lot in this country, is we have become too risk-averse, and that's one of the themes of the book.
Another amazing insight from Walter. I mean, it's like, you guys have to listen to the whole thing. This is like 4 that I'm going to show you, but there's like 1,000 in there. Capitalizing on a societal fear of risk is what Elon Musk seems very comfortable with. And you think about, what does that mean for a company like Tesla or SpaceX? The reason why they're moving so fast is because they're taking risks left and right. I saw this all the time when I was at Tesla, working there. It's people that are extremely comfortable with failure or trying things that might make them look stupid or doing things that could not work, and maybe they might be afraid of their career or whatever. Really, all those companies and how Elon Musk seems to operate is that risk is almost mandatory. Like, you can't work at his ventures or work with him unless you have a really high tolerance for risk taking. But if you really think about risk, one of the great really upsides of risk is that you'll have outsized rewards or outsized positive outcomes or outsized negative outcomes. But it seems like the more Elon Musk has been comfortable in those situations, the more he's been able to capitalize on taking the correct risks, regardless of how big they are. And I think that just speaks from experience, potentially, just how much time you spend taking our risks. At some point, you'll know which ones are the good ones and which ones are the bad ones. And perhaps that's a good life lesson for all of us. And to contrast this with sort of the rest, if I'm going to take America and sort of the corporate culture out here, business culture, look at how most business HR departments operate. Think about all the companies you worked at. What does that structure remind you of? And sort of Walter has talked about here in the space, is that everything seems risk averse. Money managers on Wall Street, risk averse. CEOs, risk averse. All these different groups and countless other organizations, they're all risk averse. And so if you have someone like an Elon that's willing to take risks and you're taking the correct risks, you're going to have dramatic, outsized positive outcomes. And I think this speaks directly to why Tesla, SpaceX, and his other ventures are so successful. It's because here's an individual that's willing to take huge risks in a landscape of very few risk takers. And so we shouldn't be surprised at the sort of success that Tesla and SpaceX and his other ventures are having. So pretty interesting takeaway there for me. And then the last thing I want to highlight in this video before I let you go listen to the whole thing, strategy. So how Elon Musk thinks about strategy and how he thinks about building companies from scratch. This was a huge takeaway for me. It really helped me think about different things. And let's go ahead and take a listen.
Love to, Walter. Thank you so much. Big fan of your book. I have 2 of them in front of me right now, including The Innovators, which is one of my favorites. So I'm curious, you've written all these biographies, all these titans of technology and innovation. So how does Elon Musk's approach to entrepreneurship and innovation, how do they compare and contrast with these other figures that you've written about before?
Well, Elon Musk is not mercenary. He's not driven by, let me start with a profit and loss statement, the way many people doing startups or entrepreneurial endeavors are. If you were driven in that way, you wouldn't say, let me create a rocket company to go to Mars. I mean, there's no P&L you can do in 2008 that says that makes sense. Likewise, Neuralink, likewise, even electric vehicles. You have to remember, General Motors had just gotten out of the EV business when Elon is getting into it. And so he's driven by mission. And those missions are epic and phenomenally huge. Like, humanity has to be spacefaring if we're going to keep consciousness alive. Or energy to be sustainable has to be a mix of EVs, solar, and batteries. And when I hear him talk about these epic missions, at first I thought it was a type of prattle you do on podcasts or pep talks for your team. But the more I heard him, the more I believe that those were the motivating factors. But the interesting thing he does entrepreneurial is he learns on the way, well, how do I make this a business? for example, he's building rockets in order to eventually send humanity into space. But he says, I get it. I could build communication satellites and take maybe just 5% of the internet business. That would be 10 times the budget NASA has. So that will fund my mission to Mars. Likewise, when he did the Roadster, it was eventually we'll do mass market vehicles. And he connected it when he brought the Tesla Solar and then Tesla Energy into the fold. So likewise with Neuralink, he wants to connect us to our machines, but the interim step that will then pay for it, which he really just figured out about a year ago, is, oh, I get it, people who are paralyzed or people who have neurodegenerative diseases will use those chips to bypass the glitch in their spinal cord or the glitch in their system. And so we'll be able to have people be able to use their arms or eyes again. So he starts with the mission and then backs into a way to say, here's the way we can make a profit stream out of it.
This one was mind-blowing to me because you think about, Walter talked about it right here. Every other business starts with profit and loss. How can I make this work from a monetary perspective, from a profit perspective? When's the last time someone's told you, start a business even though you don't think it's going to make money? That makes no sense. So the way Elon Musk works is that he starts with an inspiring mission and then he figures out how to make it work. So the electric car, SpaceX, Neuralink, all his other ventures, they're not really rooted in profit and loss. It's rooted in how important he thinks it is for humanity. And then as he goes through that mission and he goes through getting the right people in and getting the right pieces in place and starting to sort of, put the hammer to work and start figuring out how to build stuff, then the path shows itself. And I think this really highlights, from my perspective, how, there are different ways to build a business, but you need that insane work ethic, ridiculous risk-taking, on top of all the other things that Walter talks about in his space, and I'm sure his book that's going to come out on September 12th, that you need a conglomeration of things to make something like this work. But it could give you huge outsized advantages if you make it work, if you start with an inspiring mission. Why is that? The inspiring mission maximizes positive impact from the culture of the business. And I experienced this firsthand in Tesla, is that everyone there was so bought into the mission. They were so bought into making things work that it was shocking. But now it all makes sense, is if the leader is truly approaching the business from that sense of screw the money, we'll figure that out later. We're doing this because it's important and it's right. It's, I think, very hard not to be extremely attracted to that mission and that business. And I think it really highlights just how important it is to have a maximized positive culture at a business to really make that thing as effective as possible for the long term. And this sort of nugget here helps me conceptualize how Tesla, as an example, will have a long-term advantage versus everyone else, because he took the risk to make that the sort of the baseline, the foundation of building Tesla. It starts with the mission, and same thing with SpaceX. It's insane. It's completely nuts. And so I'll leave you with this. The way I think about this culture thing and sort of some of the verbiage that Elon Musk has used before, so the machine that makes the machine, I view that culture, that inspiring mission, as the machine that builds the machine, which is the company, that builds the machine, which is the machines that the companies uses, right? So I think culture is base layer, first principles, if you want to approach it. It starts with the people. And I think this really helps at least me understand why companies like Tesla and SpaceX have been so insanely successful. It's because the leader believes it, that it's important enough to exist. We've heard him talk about it, but I think it finally clicked for me that, hey, this is why it's so impactful, is because he took the risk to build a business that way instead of doing it from a monetary perspective. It finally clicked for me why that's so huge. So make sure you go pre-order this book. Again, Walter Isaacson doesn't sponsor this video, hasn't done anything for this video. I just found his previous book amazing. You can find it on Amazon September 12th. You can pre-order it. Apparently, if more people pre-order it, the cost goes down for everybody because the folks will be able to print more books. So some amazing information there. And then I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, what you thought about this interview. Again, it's on Spaces, Twitter. I'll have a link for that in the comments section below. I'll also have a link to the YouTube copy on my channel as well for those that don't have Twitter. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. I think there's some crazy insights into how Elon Musk operates, and I really can't wait to get into that book, man. If you want to support this channel, I have a link to Athletic Greens in my description below. Supplement I take every single day. You'll get some free travel packs and free vitamin D with your purchase. And I hope this video was informative and helpful. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one, everybody. Take it easy. Thank you for stopping by. Bye-bye.